And
Audio recording for this meeting has begun.
thank you for joining us today. As you heard, today's webinar is being recorded so that we can make this webinar available to those unable to come today or for your own future reference. My name is Imogene Fua. Let me switch to this slide. Okay. And I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm part of the data support team, which provides technical assistance to grantees in collecting and submitting your required performance measures data to OPA. Our presenters today are Tara Rice from OPA, who will give you an overview of the requirements for submitting your performance measures, and then Zach Eckstein from Data Support will give you a live demo on how to submit that data. But before I hand off the webinar to the presenters, I just want to go over some logistics. We are in lecture mode, which means that all of you are muted. But if you do have a question or a comment, you can raise your hand by clicking on the hand button, which is located at the top menu bar. And we can unmute you when it's appropriate, when we have a break. We also have the chat box, which is located on the left side of your screen. You are welcome to enter questions in that chat box at any time. So if you have a question that you don't want to forget, just type it in, and then we can save it for an appropriate time. If we don't get to your question in the chat box due to time, we will be gathering all of your questions, and we'll address them in a fact document that we can also give to you. And then finally, there will be a question and answer session after each of the presenter, and so we can address your questions at that time as well. I also want to point out to the resources that's at the bottom of your screen. You will see two boxes starting from the left called Your Resources and Web Links. In the resources box, feel free to download all of those resources. They include the manual and the forms that you will need for submitting your data. And Zach will actually go over those. And then the web links are links to the same resources, but are located on the OHPM DataNet website, and Zach will also go over that. And then lastly, the presentation slides, the transcript, as well as the fact document that we'll put together will be available on the GranteeMax.gov website. Please do give us a couple of weeks or so after today to get those materials prepared for online. Okay, so let's go through the agenda. So Tara Rice will start off with giving an overview of the performance measures, along with expectations and the reporting timeline. And then Zach will give a demo of the system, how to access your account, how to enter your data, and then go over some helpful website features. And then finally, we'll have a final chance to ask more questions and get on-the-spot answers. So let's get started, and I'll turn it over to Tara. Tara, if you're talking, I think you're muted.
Hi, everyone. I was on mute, I think. So these are the general expectations for the performance measures. You're all expected to collect data, report data to us twice a year, obtain permissions to collect data, to have a designated staff person to collect the data, or two is always, or at least two is helpful, to have a backup person. Ensure that your data are collected and reported to us by the deadline, and also that you're using data to monitor your program's implementation and make improvements. The next slide shows the reporting periods and deadlines, and these should generally align with your programmatic reporting. So the first half of the year, from July to December, you report any data to us by the end of January, and the second semi-annual period, from January to June of each year, you should be reporting that data to us by the end of July. So you have 30 days from the end of each 6-month period to finalize and submit all of your performance data for that period. Next slide. So, and this will be reiterated when Zach does his presentation later on the system and the demonstration, but all of the data, and you have the performance measures that you already, you've seen them from your project officer, but there are a couple of different levels at which you're going to be entering data into the system. So there's grantee organization or project level data, and these are things that you're just going to aggregate and report up to us, summed up for your entire grant project. Those are things like partnership, training, dissemination, sustainability, and stakeholder engagement. Then there's also section data, and this is basically group or class level data that you're reporting to us on your implementations of your evidence-based program. So this is mainly your participant reach, which is overall numbers and demographic characteristics, dosage, which is attendance, fidelity and quality of implementation of your evidence-based programs, and referrals and linkages, which is going to be reported by your partners, and this is just participant referrals. So I'm going to go over these in a higher level, quick overview. Partners, many of you have been funded before, and you'll notice that some of these questions have changed. So this time around in TPP 2020, we are asking for the number of formal partners specifically, and we're also asking you about retention of your partners. So how many partners did you have at the start of the reporting period, and how many partners at the end of the reporting period. Then we have a training item, and our training item is really about any technical assistance or professional development that any of your staff are receiving that relates to how they implement the overall grant project, not just the evidence-based programs, but anything you're doing with the grant. So how many trainings are offered and how many staff are trained are the questions. The next item is sustainability. You may or may not have things to report for sustainability at the beginning of your grant, so that's fine. Report what you have when you have it. We ask about dollar amount of additional funding beyond the TPP grant that you've received. We ask for the number of partners that have firm plans to continue. Please put yourself on mute if you're listening right now. Thanks. And we also have an item about how many different sources of funding you have in place to support the grant. And next we have dissemination items. So we're asking about publications, presentations, and social media activities that you've implemented during the reporting period. Again, you may not have anything to report on this right now in year one, and you might not be doing publications in 2 years. That's fine. Again, you report what you have when you have it. And so, this is about publications, it's about presentations, and we also ask you about the number of times that you're using various approaches such as social media to communicate information about the grant project itself, as well as the number of times you're using approaches to raise awareness about optimal health and teen pregnancy prevention in your community. And we also have a stakeholder engagement item. So here we're asking you to tell us, how many stakeholders are meaningfully engaged within your project based on whether they're youth, caregivers, or other community members. And again, meaningfully engaged is going to be really defined based on your particular project, but it could involve things such as community advisory groups, for example, as well as other activities where you're engaging people in planning your project. And next, we're going to move on to things that you're going to report about your actual evidence-based effective programs. You're going to report general information on each group or section that you implement. So this is a class that gets the program together. You're going to tell us like which program model, the type, the implementation setting, the state in which it's located, and also the urbanicity where you're implementing, urban, rural, or suburban. And then you're going to report participant reach and demographics. So there's total reach, which is the number of participants in each group or section or class that you have who attend at least one activity of the program, as well as the characteristics to gender, race, ethnicity, age, and grade. And you'll see how you enter this in part 2 of this presentation. So we also ask you to tell us about any non-use that are being served with supplemental activities. And supplemental activities are activities that are beyond or supplemental to the evidence-based programs that you're implementing. So a lot of times Tier 1 grantees will have parent education programs for the youth that are getting a particular evidence-based program. So if you're doing something like that, you would just enter the number of caregivers that are getting those supplemental activities or the number of youth-serving professionals who are getting those supplemental activities. You may or may not have any of this to report, but if you do, you put it in here. And then we're moving on to the next slide. We also ask you to tell us about how much of the program participants are receiving. So we ask you to report average participant attendance and the number of participants who are completing at least 3/4 of the program, the evidence-based program. Those are our 2 dosage metrics. And we also ask you about observational fidelity and quality. And so these are the expectations that are in the funding announcement. We expect that you observe at least 10% of all of your evidence-based programming. We expect that you would observe all of your facilitators at least once. And we ask that you try to balance your observations as much as possible across your different sites, your facilitators, and your different sessions that make up your program model to the best that you can. Just a little bit here about who can be an independent observer. Ideally, your observer should be someone who's familiar with their program model, and ideally they're not affiliated with daily implementation. So if you have someone like an evaluator, internal or external, a data analyst, some other staff person in another department, a supervisor, or someone from your partner agency, those are really great people to do observations. We have other ideas if you need more suggestions about that as well. And what we actually ask you to report is how many sessions or meetings you're planning to implement for each meeting, how many sessions you actually implement, and the number of sessions that you observe. And then we also ask you to collect for each meeting that you observe the fidelity or observed adherence, the percentage of activities that were completed out of the number that you plan to do. And we also ask you to report observed quality using the OPA observation form. And so you would report overall quality on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is excellent and 1 is poor. And then there's a fidelity process form that you would report once per reporting period, and that's more like part of your grantee level data, and it just asks you to report on your overall processes, and we'll show you that form a little later as well. So the next part of this is the demonstration. So if you have questions about the measures, please feel free to type them into the chat. We're going to, after the demo, we're going to have more time open for more detailed Q&A. But if you have questions about the measures themselves right now, please type them into the chat, and we can probably take a couple of them now and then come back to the rest of them later. Okay, so one question for permission, does OPA have a template letter? No, there's not really a template letter. What we're really trying to make sure is that, you know, the measures were made available to you, like when you got funded, and so just make sure that your sites know that you're going to be collecting all of these things and that they are okay with it. Because it's not acceptable to come back and say, oh, I couldn't report this because my site won't let me come in and collect these performance measures. So it's really not so much that we're asking you to submit a specific letter. It's just, you know, make sure that you have shared your the measures with all your sites, and that all your sites know that these things are going to be collected as part of the grant.
Hello, everyone. This is Zach. I think I see one more person typing a question in, so we'll just give it just one more moment to see if that question does come in. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move forward with the demonstration, and perhaps when you see the data collection tool and the website where you'll enter the data, it'll make a little bit more sense. As well, you'll have the documents to review once we're done, so you can piece those together. And I see another question from Gina in the chat. Permission to collect the data. If we're not collecting sensitive behavior questions, do we need to obtain permission from parents for performance measures data, or just confirmation from the school district? So you need confirmation from the school district for the performance measures data, and just make sure that, you know, you're adhering to whatever the policies are, you know, for your schools. If, on the other hand, you are doing surveys for which are not part of your performance measures but are part of other evaluation activities you're doing as part of your monitoring, evaluation, and improvement plan, then, you know, depending on what you're collecting, you may need to go through an IRB and get additional levels of clearance for that. So I'm not speaking for everything that you're doing, but just for your performance measures. Okay. Excellent.
So I think now we can turn it over to Zach and do the demo, and I'll be happy to answer any additional questions that people put into the chat when we get to the end.
Thank you very much. All right, so what we're going to be taking a few minutes to go over today is going to be the OAHPMdata.net website. We'll be doing a few things. I'll show you the initial setup that you'll need to do in order to be able to enter your data correctly. We'll look at all the data submission pieces, how to get all that set up and where to go to enter the data. And then finally, we'll review some of the website features, including our resources with our video tutorials, the reports that show you the data that you've entered in different ways so you can print that off, how you can adjust your profile and where you can do password resets and things like that. I'll just briefly show you through those. As a note, this is the test version of the website, so there is kind of just test data laying around in here. So while some things might look like they're your grantee, they probably won't, and they definitely aren't be. So
What we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and log in. And as you'll see, our website uses multi-factor authentication, which means you need a username and a password plus another code, which you can get through either a phone call and voice will read you a 6-digit code, or you can get a text message sent to your phone. We also have the Google Authenticator option as well, if you like using that app on your phone. All right, so welcome to the homepage of the website. Again, this is the test website, so you can see our homepage is pretty blank. We can post any important announcements on the website, so you can always be sure to check if there's anything relevant there for you posted on the homepage. The first thing that we're going to do in order to get everything kind of set up is we're going to go to our grantees link in our navigation bar. And here, some of you who already have accounts and may have done this before, you'll see all of your grantees listed. If this is your first time, you'll only have one, so you don't need to worry about all the filter options up top. What we'll ask you to do is start over here with the edit button the first time you come in and make sure that all your information is correct. You'll be able to adjust the primary contact if you need to. So if you get that for us, that'll make it easier for us to provide consistent support and know who we need to talk to if we have any issues. Back here on our grantee list, in order to get everything set up, what we'll want to do is we'll want to tell the website which program models we're actually going to be implementing. So for this grantee, they're implementing these 2 program models. You can click the Add Program Model button and select, here there's only one more option, but you'll see all the available options that you have, and you can save it, and it'll be added to the list that you're implementing. This is important because if you don't indicate it here, you won't be able to select the option later, and that's to help avoid errors in data entry later down the line. Now that we have our program model set, we're going to set up our organizations. So if you're not implementing programming, you don't have any sections to report on yet, you don't need to worry about this. But as soon as you need to report data on sections, you'll need to set up an organization. Some of our grantees have multiple organizations that work and run sections. Some of you may only be implementing them yourself. Either way, you'll need to add an implementing organization. So we can take a look at that screen here. You'll just name it and give it a primary contact, and that's all you need to do. Then you'll say which program models that organization is actually implementing, and we'll see that we can select only the ones that we've already indicated are available for our grantee. This is so to make sure you can delineate, if you need to, which organization is running which program. Finally, and the most important part of being able to enter section data is going to be the users button. So here, if we need to enter data about those groups and attendance and things like that, we'll need to make sure that we add users. And we can do that. There'll be a, I can show you by deleting this user. And here you can see, since we have no users, we can just click the Add Self button here in order to have access. If you want to create a user for an organization so that they're able to enter section data for themselves, so that they don't have to send data to you and enter it, but you don't want them to be able to access the grantee level data because they don't need to mess with that, here you can use the Add User option to create an entirely new user if you need to. If they already exist in the system, you'll simply be able to add them to the user access list. So we have our organization set up with our program models and our users. We have our grantee all set up with their primary contacts and the program models that they use. So we'll take a moment to take a look at where we actually submit the data. So for that grantee level data, it's submitted on that every 6 months. And so we have our reporting period selector here at the top. As you can see, we have them labeled. I believe the labels on the live website have the actual date ranges in there for you to be more specific than just July to December. And you'll see we have several tabs. You'll need to complete every tab before you hit the save button. If you complete a single tab and hit the save button, there may be validation errors or other things. So you'll want to make sure you complete all the tabs before you hit save. As you can see, these are the items that we went through earlier in the presentation: the number of formal partners, your partner retention, sustainability, all of the items that we reviewed previously. You'll report those data points here under these headings. Once you've completed all your data entry, all you got to do is click Save. If there are any particular issues, the website will report them to you. There'll be a nice red box at the top and wherever the particular validation error might be. There aren't many on the grantee data, but you'll see there are a few on the section level data that we'll take a look at. So to enter that section level data, the next place that we're going to go is our organizations link up here in the navigation bar. We're going to select our grantee from the dropdown. And when the page reloads, we're going to see the organizations that we belong to. Now, this is the important step. If we don't see anything appear here when we select our grantee, that means we need to go back to the grantees page and our organizations, and then make sure we're a user for the organization that we want to be able to enter that data for. So we have a question here that I can answer now. So to clarify, grantee data is our own data or organization information, and organizations are the partners we are working with. That is how some grantees have it split up. Some grantees do it all themselves. But yes, that is typically the way you would set that up. The grantee data is definitely your own data about your partners and your trainings and things like that. Whereas your organizations are the ones that might be implementing the programming, doing those healthcare linkages. Excellent. All right. So we'll head back. We'll take a look at the section data entry. So again, the sections are those groups, those classes, for example, like Miss Barden's third grade health class that goes to the class 8 times to complete the program. That is one section. So we'll take a quick look at the supportive services reporting area. This is very straightforward. You select the reporting period, you enter the number of referrals that were made, and then you click Save. The sections have a bit more complexity here. You'll select your reporting period, which is on an annual basis. So you'll make sure you select that right year-long reporting period. And then you'll select the program model that you want to see those sections for. I believe I had some. Here we go. So as you can see, we had no sections for the Education Station program model, so it was blank. But now that I've selected Teen Talk, I can see that I have 2 sections prepared here. So we can go ahead and add a third section by clicking Add Section. And so we'll just call this one Test for now, and we'll select our state, our setting, and our urbanicity for that section. Now here we can see our test section has been created, so we can go ahead and add our section data. So here's where we're going to report the reach, the dosage, and the fidelity and quality data. So your total youth reach, this is the number of youths that have participated in your program. And when you enter this number, what you'll see is that you will need to match this for your demographic points here. So for gender, whatever it is that we enter, we'll want to make sure that the total equals our total youth reach. If it doesn't, when we hit save, it'll report a validation error and let us know which set of fields or demographics is off. So I'm just going to enter some random data for us here. Down below the demographics, we can see here's where we enter about our non-youth participants. So there may be a program that is actually targeted more towards adults than teens. If that's the case, then you'll be reporting those adult participants in this category here, these first caregiver and youth serving professionals category. If your implementation is targeted towards teens, but you have those supplemental activities that are attended by caregivers or youth serving professionals, that is going to be the set of reporting boxes down below that. If you have a specific question about your implementation and how to report, we can certainly address that here, or when you have that question, you can address it to your project officer or go ahead and email the support team, and we'd be happy to help walk you through that. Here's where we report our dosage. So this is going to be the average attendance for your program participants in each class or section, and then how many of those participants received at least 75% of the programming for that section. I'm going to show you a tool after we're done walking through the website that we use. It's an Excel spreadsheet that's an attendance list for each section that you run that will calculate these for you. You're welcome to use whatever tool you like, but you will need to report these kind of calculated numbers at the end. So we do provide that tool if you would like to use it. Lastly, here's where we report our fidelity and quality. So the number of sessions planned, completed, and observed. The observed adherence, which is the number of activities completed over the number of activities planned. And then again, your observer rated quality. In the My Resources, Your Resources section, you'll see there's the the Section Program Quality Observation Form. That form has a set of instructions that will, at the end, give you this score of 1 through 5 that you will report here for the section data. So we have another question here that do we need to complete the fields in the report all at one time, or will the data save for you to return to it later? I would always recommend completing all of the data all at once for the section. You will need to complete the reach portion of it correctly. So for the total youth reach, the demographics will have to line up for the data to save, as well down here for these first set of adult participants. There are some fields that cannot be left blank, I believe, over here, these starred fields. So those will need to be completed before anything can be saved. So it's my recommendation that you have everything together for the section, and you'll see how the tool will just provide it all to you all at once, so you can enter it all at once. So that's my main recommendation. So that's most of what you need to know in order to enter and submit your data through the oahpmdata.net website. We'll take a look at some of the other website features briefly so we can see those. We'll take a look at the resources section from our link in our navigation bar. Give it a moment to load here. We do have available video tutorial resources that you'll be able to watch on the website or download for watching later. Here we go. So we have our resources folder. We only have one folder at the moment for the user guide and tools. And here we have our comprehensive user guide, our section data tracker that we're going to take a look at, our program quality observation form, and our fidelity process form. Again, these are the resources that are available to you here in the Adobe Connect that you can download to start taking a look at as you like. Our video tutorials live in our tutorial section up at the top here. So we'll give that a moment to load. Here we have our tutorials, and at the moment we only have the one video, and this is the how to enter and save section data. So it will walk you through each piece of the section data and some of the common validation errors that people run into. So you'll be able to review that as well. This entire session is being recorded, so that will be available to you to review if you need to. Take a look at the reports. So as you can see, we have our 2020 reports. If you're part of a different cohort, you'll see something else as well. But in our 2020 reports, we have them split up by several different categories. So here we can view our grantee level data. And as you'll see at the top, we'll have some different filter options in order to sort our data for program models or other things. And in our actual table, we'll be able to filter or group the different datas and then print that table out if we like. So as you can see here, this is a bit of a long table here, but you'll be able to export it to Excel if you like. And as you can see, we only have our one line of data here for our grantee level data. We can take a look at our reach. And as we can see here for our reach report, we can select which demographic we want to see it by. So whether it's by gender or by age, we can see some of our test data that we have loaded into the system here. And then we have our export to Excel button. Of course, we can sort and filter, and you can play around with the tables. You're able to group by column. I don't have a lot of data for it to be very expressive at the moment, but there are ways that you can use this to analyze your data if you like, if you want to do it here in the system instead of just exporting it and analyzing it in a different way. So before we move, one last thing. I'll just show you up in the top right here. Here's where you can access your profile, where you can adjust your password, your multi-factor authentication, and your contact information. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to just have us take a look at the section data tracker tool. So we'll just download a fresh copy of this here for us. And open it up. All right. So I'll zoom in a little bit so we can see this a bit better. Here we have our kind of attendance tracker tool. We have some instructions in the front. You do not submit this tracker. This is for you to keep and use as a tool. You don't send this anywhere. So whatever you do with this is up to you once you download it. You can see here we can use it like an attendance list. Participant ID, you can edit this to whatever you would like it to be. Since you're not submitting it, you can certainly do initials or identifiers however you like. Select the type of individual. So if it's a youth, great. If it's one of the adult categories, we don't collect the demographic data about them. We'll go ahead and fill in our demographic data. Just pick some random options here. And now that we've filled our demographic data in, what we'll do is as the class or section is running and has multiple sessions, a meeting, we'll record the attendance. So we'll say 1 for present or 0 for absent. So if they were here, we get a nice little check mark and we can see we're now starting to count them and their attendance. And as you go and fill in more sessions, you'll see that it'll automatically update their attendance rate for you. So you'll do that for each of the participants, and you'll have one of these spreadsheets for every section. So if you're running, program models at 3 different sites and they each have 3 classes, then you'll have 9 of these spreadsheets worth of sections to report. For the supplemental activities, this is the adults that are participating in those supplemental activities. They'll just indicate what type of adult, if it's a caregiver, or a youth serving professional. And you'll see the count will start to go up here as well. Finally, this tool has a place for observations as well, so you can enter the observation date, the session number, and that goes back to our attendance list here where we can have the sessions numbered, so you can track that. And then finally, the overall quality. So the overall quality comes from question 7 of the section program quality observation form that you can download. If you take a moment to look over that, you'll see there are 6 questions that lead up to a 7th question, which you use to determine that final score of 1 through 5, which you can select here. Finally, you enter the number of activities planned and completed, and you get your session adherence score. For each of these that are updated, you'll be able to have this all calculate out into our reporting tabs here. So when you get to the website, what you'll see is this same setup as we saw earlier. So you'll be able to easily enter, your reach by gender, age, and grade in the order that you see it here. So you can easily type that in and transfer it, as well as your adult participants and your supplemental activity-only adults. The dosage page, this does the actual calculations for you, so your average attendance based on what you've entered on the attendance sheet, as well as the number of participants that have that 75% dosage based on their reported attendance per session. Finally, for the Fidelity tab, there's no place to track the number of sessions in here, but you can do that on the attendance sheet. And then it'll report to you how many classes were observed based on the number of observations that you reported, and then the average observed session adherence and the overall quality that was reported. So once you've entered your data on the first 3 tabs, that will allow you to enter easily, have all the calculated items that you need to enter the data into the website. And you can use this along the way to track your attendance as well, so that it's all ready to go for you. So when you do sit down to enter the section data, you can just do it all at once. All right. Go ahead and we'll take a look at any questions that we may have. So for the observation quality form, is the overall score an average of the previous questions or its own independent rating? So it looks like we have some time here. So as part of the questions, we can start opening that up more now. And I'd be happy to review some of these items as well. So let me go ahead and pull that up for us. So here is the program. I'll make this a little bigger. The program quality observation form. It's got a set of instructions as well as some labels at the top for you to use. You give scores based on these different categories. And then for question number 7 at the bottom, you're going to rate the overall quality of the program session. And it gives you the instruction that it's a summary measure of all of the preceding questions, and then a further assessment of the material covered and the performance of the implementer. And it gives you some examples of what excellent sessions look like and what poor sessions might look like. So your overall impression, as well as factoring in the scores on the previous questions, go into your final determination of your score for question 7. And that's the score that is reported as the overall quality for that section. All of the quality scores for the sessions that are observed will be averaged to get the score for the section itself. All right, hopefully that addresses that question. Are there any other questions? If not, we'll just take a moment maybe to take a look at the Fidelity process reporting form as well. This form is going to be completed by your grantee project director, and it reviews the processes you have in place to improve fidelity. So your orientation and training, your fidelity management. Each of these is scored from 0 for not at all, 1 for somewhat, and 2 for completely. And so you'll end up getting a score between 0 and 26 points. And that's what you'll report as part of your grantee data. If you do ever need any help with the website or have any questions about your data reporting, you can either give us a call or send us an email at support@oahpmdata.net. We'll be there to assist you as soon as we can. We can do it by phone, over the internet, and through screen sharing as well, so we can do a over-the-shoulder guide if needed. Everything about the setup that you need to do, as well as how to enter data, is walked through step by step as well in the user guide with screenshots. So if you want a step-by-step list of what needs to be done the first time you log back in, because maybe the webinar is a little hazy, you'll be able to do that. Although, that reminds me, I'd like to invite everyone who did get an email earlier today. They can go ahead and begin to access their user accounts. If you have already received an email, if you have not received an email yet, you will be receiving one shortly. And you'll be able to go ahead and get logged in and start getting that set up by setting your program models, by making sure your organizations exist and that you've added the appropriate users so those users can enter their section data. All right. We'll take a few minutes to see if there are any questions as we wrap up our content. So we have a question: are PM's performance measures reported annually or semi-annually? So you're going to be reporting on that semi-annual basis every 6 months. The grantee level data will be those 6-month chunks that you'll be reporting on, whereas the section level data, you'll come and you'll update it in that first 6-month period, but it's for the reporting period is technically the whole year. So once the section is completed, that's when you'll report it. So you'll have kind of expected at 2 opportunities to be able to do that, so you don't have a backlog of reporting and you get that data in there. So we have another question: who will the email come from to get access to the site? You'll likely see an email from oahpmdata.net. You may want to check your spam or junk folders and allow that. You'll see the email comes with a link that invites you to come and set up your password for the first time or reset your password. If you have the email for longer than 24 hours, the link will no longer work. So what you'll need to do is you can go ahead and head to our homepage and use the forgot password link, enter your email address, and you'll be sent a brand new email to go ahead and reset your password and get your account set up. The first time you log in as well, it will ask you to pick your multi-factor authentication option. So that's going to be your cell phone number, perhaps, for a call or a text with that 6-digit access code for security. All right. So we're free and open for questions now. If you have any questions about the performance measures, about the website, any aspect of the things that we've reviewed, I'd be happy to go over those with you or pass it off to someone who has the answer if I do not. All right, we have another question. If a program session extends beyond a 6-month period, what do we report on the end of the first 6-month period? So you wouldn't be reporting the section until it is complete. So that is when you will report it for whichever reporting period the section finishes in. So if it's still ongoing, then you wouldn't be reporting it in that period. The measures that you're reporting for the section level data are the results once the program has completed. So the total attendance for the whole program, the dosage for the whole program, so it needs to be ended before you can report it.
And I would like to add on and reiterate to what Zach said, that but you still have project level data that you should report at the mid-year, even if you haven't finished your section of TOP yet. Those things like partnerships and training and so forth.
And we can, I'll log in again. We can look at that distinction as well. 602. So one more time, under grantees up at the top, we'll have our specific grantee, and here's where we report that grantee level data every 6 months. So this is the score from that fidelity process form that we took a look at here, that our grantee project director fills out every 6 months. The trainings that we've done and how many individuals got the trainings, our formal partners, retention, the sustainability items we discussed, stakeholder engagement and dissemination in terms of social media or information. These are reported every 6 months, regardless of what you're doing with implementing your program. Whereas when we go to organizations, here's where we're going to enter that data about our implementations. We're going to create our sections for our program models and report the attendance, and we're going to report the number of referrals that are made for supportive services. We'll still want to do this part as well every 6 months, but as the question asks, we just won't be reporting incomplete sections during whichever 6-month reporting period that it is. All right. Well, we'll be here for a few more minutes if there are any further or follow-up questions. I believe that is all the specific content that we have for today. So thank you for coming and taking the time out of your day to learn more about this and make sure you're ready to go for data collection when it is time.
Thank you, everyone. We're still going to be around for another 10 or 15 minutes if people have additional questions that you want to answer, unless no questions are remaining.